Regina Muhlomi from Parliament. I would have loved to hear the actual practical ideas of systems thinking in a system that exists already, because it's much easier to fathom the idea of systems thinking when you are the originator. You know, when you are doing things for the first time and you are doing something original, it's very, very easy to understand and actually follow. But where you already have systems inculcated, and you even have the people perspective, where somebody will tell you, I've been here 20 years and this is how we've been doing it. You know, where do you come from with your Jimmy come lately ideas? I would have loved to hear how we could, in a practical sense, you know, employ these ideas in a system that already is very much entrenched. Thank you.
Any other questions? We'll try and take at least about 5 questions before we open up to responses. Can we give the mic there, please?
Thank you. My name is Matlaj Malaka from Free State Legislature. You might help me if I offer, maybe it might be part of the system thinking. Having listened to the speaker, I had much expectation to give us a clarity of the case studies that has happened before, because I've seen that the scenario that has created that it looks like there's nothing that is wrong. So now the issue that I'm sitting here with is that now, how do we integrate that system thinking with regard to the legislative sector? Where in other sectors or in other sectors, this system has successfully been implemented. So that we should know that we are not putting an apple, although it's in a vegetable, in an environment that is not supposed to be. So I just wanted to get it clear. Has ever this system thinking ever worked anywhere in the planet, so that we can able to know that we are moving in the right direction? Thank you.
Question at the back and then question here.
Hi, my name is Dr. Dave Funchu from the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, and I'm just listening to the systems theory thinking, and one of my major concerns is, and just in line with what came from our colleague from Parliament, is it's not pragmatic. It doesn't sound, there's no pragmatism coming through on that. And also with regard to, it seems to me that the decision-making process is slowed down. And I just get a very strong feeling it's going to become too bureaucratic. And I just need to get some clarity on how we could do away with the bureaucracy of the system thinking, because I think it will slow down from my own personal experiences. Thank you.
Okay, question in the middle.
Thank you very much. Thank you. My name is Nomvula Giba from Parliament. My question is, how does the system thinking differ from cooperative governance? Because I'm a bit confused. Cooperative governance have got points of emphasis of interrelatedness or interdependentness of institutions of government. Now, listening to the presentation, I get to understand that that collaboration between different state institutions should yield the results that are envisaged by government. So how does it differ then? This system, how does it differ from cooperative governance? Thanks.
Okay, there are 2 hands at the back, but let me also just indicate that I can see all the questions are around systems thinking. There was organizational development and very exciting information that, or direction and leadership that was coming from the Deputy Speaker, as well as looking at the 20 years and even holistically looking at what was presented with the presentation from Dr. Dostal. I think we must just broaden our scope so that we're just not trapped onto the intrinsics of just the systems concept, just in terms of broadening the discussion. 2 hands at the back, and then we'll allow for responses.
My name is Ngengelezi Masugu from Eastern Cape Legislature. Thanks for the thinking that you have provided to us in terms of opening our skulls. I don't have a question though, but I have a comment. It's just a comment that I'm going to give. To me, when I summarize this system thinking, it goes back to the common sense that we as the public sector need to adopt. I think the main pillars of the system, in my summary, what has been presented, is the issue of time and space. In a sense that I think to some extent we are failing to master the management of time and space, in a sense that we don't give a proper space and time to create for ourselves where we engage on issues as the public sector, especially the public sector institutions. I think if you can try to master this in terms of creating a time and space among ourselves, I think we can do better in as far as this system thinking is concerned. Because to some extent, I think we seem to be busy for not finding time for each other, and we seem to be busy for not creating a space among ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Malibongwe Ngai. I'm also from the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature. My main interest, I'm sorry, also will be on the presentation by Dr. Elisabeth Dostal regarding specifically the area where she was making a change, she was presenting a change management model of the current future and the current state, and then the ideal future. Now, my question is, when you have implemented some of the measures that will take you to your ideal future, won't then your ideal future turn into being your current future? Then if that becomes the situation, naturally won't that then generate another ideal future, and then thereby creating some degree of instability? I wanted to check that. And I think I do want to appreciate the emphasis of the multiplicity of elements in the concept of co-production. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Dr. Dostal, would you want to respond now to those issues?
Yeah, in many ways, they're related issues.
You can, I think, rather use the microphone. Do you want to come here?
Yeah. But maybe you also would like to make some comment on some of those. First of all, I have not really showed you the depths of system thinking. So while it is common sense, if I can start maybe with that one, it is true in the true sense of the word that we need the common senses of different stakeholders to come together. Our current way of decision making and current management is not synergistic. So it is a new body of knowledge that is unfortunately not sufficiently taught as a meta-discipline at, for example, management institutions, which are function-specific and very industrial age. The curriculum of the MBAs has been designed in the 1920s with a couple of subjects added since. It is not synergistic. If system thinking is taught, it's taught as a little subject. It's not taught as the integrative theory for all the functions to work together. So from that point of view, common sense would become very powerful if we have new concepts, system thinking concepts that we apply in our thinking on a day-to-day basis. Then the new common sense thinking would be different than the current common sense. But I agree, ideally we want to have it common sense, because that worldview has become so common that we are inclusive and so on. Now, what is the difference to cooperative governance? System thinking to cooperative governance, it's the same thing. Currently, cooperative governance works with the mental models and the mindsets of industrial age thinking. It is not synergistic. It hasn't got the principles of organization that system thinking brings to the table, which I have not shown, because this is a vast body of knowledge. How do I do a design? What are the generic organizing principles of all systems in nature, in society, and so on? We need to learn those principles and apply them to our common governance, and then we would have different outcomes, although seemingly the working together or to have cooperative governance would still operate the same way, but the content would be different. Okay. Then we have the whole issue about two related issues about case studies. Where does it work? Well, up to now, system thinking, and it's a vast field. One of the things I haven't talked about is the difference in approach between system thinking in the nature sphere, in other words, in nature systems, and in social systems, and in technological systems, which I need to mention here. It is very effective in modeling systems of nature, because systems of nature have fixed functioning evolved. The kidney doesn't say, I don't want to do the kidney thing, I want to do the heart thing. It doesn't do that. So we can model exactly what is happening, and it is used very successfully in, for example, climate modeling and so on. This approach is not useful in organizations, and maybe the speaker or the commentator who talked about that it slows down decision making has encountered some of that kind of using the wrong systems approach in the wrong context. And I can give you maybe a little case study from university, where suddenly one student approached me. He had worked 2 years on an analysis, a systems dynamics analysis of the South African healthcare system, with the idea to improve it, and used the wrong approach, the systems dynamics approach, which is used in nature but not in society, where we need the ideal redesign. So his promoter said, Elisabeth knows about system thinking, maybe she can help you. So he came to me, poor guy, and I laughed. And I said, you used the wrong approach. You will not have, you cannot design an ideal healthcare system or improve it with the method you used. So he said, what do I do now? Well, I said, come into my class, which he did. I had a 3-day course on system thinking to outline the principles and that, so in 1 hour I couldn't give you all that. And he was near to tears on day 1. He said, I realized what I had done. And he said, what can I do now? So I said, you have a good analysis of the problem of healthcare in South Africa. You can now do an ideal design. He said, but that takes me another year. I said, so it does. So he said, what's the alternative? I said, you change the title of your thesis to, instead of using the systems approach for an ideal design of healthcare, you say for an systemic analysis of the problems in the healthcare sector, which he did. So we must be careful when we talk system thinking, and I had no time here to outline that. The right approach will not slow down decision making. It will slow down decision-making in the sense that we are making decisions that are relevant. If I have an ideal design of education, which, for example, outcomes-based education was, the mistake we made immediately we tried to immediately implement it. So it couldn't be done, so it became Curriculum 2000, and then 2001, and 2002, and 2003, and so on, because it was recognized that you can't implement a design. So we would have needed to spend a year planning, and then it takes some time to do the step-by-step implementation. This is not slowing it down, it's making decision-making relevant, because a lot of decisions that are being made quickly now are actually only creating more chaos and more disorder. But it needs to take the time it takes. It's like the baby needs 9 months to grow, so we cannot speed it up for maybe a month. Where does system thinking work? In organizations, I have worked with many, not many, several large, very large organizations where it improved coordination, it improved business, it improved including people development. And I must say also, in all honesty, every organization falls down somewhere because it's all becoming too much. It's a long process. You start with one thing, after 2 or 3 years you do another thing. So transformations are not overnight. In the government, we have applied it. I've done initiatives or interventions once in the province in Cape Town, where we aligned planning. It was at the time of the transition of planning to 3-year planning cycles and standardized planning templates and evaluation forms, and looking at the system, and also transversal planning. So what I put up here on the table, we worked on at that time. Has it been implemented? Well, just when we were finished, there was a change in government. So some of it was implemented, some of it was not implemented. I need to also say something about case studies in general. And I want to bring it back to that one picture where I said change ripples through the systems all the time. One of the weaknesses of management education in MBA programs is that they work with case studies. Coca-Cola has done that, so now you in the education system should take note of it and should follow suit because it works there. You know what's the truth? The case studies of Coca-Cola 5 years ago isn't even relevant to Coca-Cola now, let alone to any other organization. Case studies are only useful to demonstrate a principle. Now, system thinking has no content. I'm not saying how an education system should look like, or an energy system. System thinking is a set of principles, or you could call it a framework of questions that you're asking. And the answers come from the participants, and every system will be different to every other system. So, and that is the second answer to that cooperative governance. You would still have your mechanism, but you would ask different questions. And because you ask different questions in your cooperative governance, you will get different answers, you will get different systems, you will get different outcomes. And that's the best I can do. There will be no standardized there will be emerging, and we see it already, for example, the matrix structure as an organizational form. That is already quite clearly emerging in the private sector, less so in the public sector. I have once proposed it to the United Nations, but it was not used up to now as an official as an official framework. So we are at the beginning of the information age. If I can remind you, the industrial age consisted of the steam age, the electricity age, the atomic age. Now we are maybe at the end of the steam age of the information age. We are moving into other ages, and these new systems have not emerged yet. Every day we hear something new, but the organizing principles that systems thinking represents can help us. It's a set of questions that we need to ask in what we are doing now anyway, and the answers will be different. I don't know if this is satisfying you, but that's all I can maybe.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dostal. Program Director, let me start this way. I can't resist this one. Ma'am, in your presentation about the progression from industrial to information age, you suggest that amongst the things you put under what has disappeared, ideologies and so on, that they have disappeared, or that they have become not driving forces. Okay. My worry is the Fukuyama, whose view it is of the clash of civilizations. That's a perspective from the right, I want to suggest. In other words, that's one interpretation of what has happened during that space of movement from industrial to information age. But secondly also, one of the interesting observations of seeing in systems is asking the question, this problem we're dealing with here, where does it come from? What is its history? So that you do not look at problems only in their current formation, and you do not look at their past, their origins. That's if anything, this is one of an interesting way to look at things in their systemic perspective. The other one that I think is very useful, which is very basic, when I said that when we spoke about the interconnectedness of problems, that's a very useful thing to ask yourself. In the unit in which you are operating, who else is impacted by the work you do? Who impacts you in the work that you are doing? What difference would their perspective do to your consideration? What she calls, the problems are often multidimensional, they are interconnected, but practically when we do our work, we like operating in our own individual units, and we don't care about what others think, all right? In local government, there's a man called Charles Landry in the Creative City, says there's no way in which the engineer in a municipality can go ahead and do things without the perspectives of the planner, okay? Or the lawyer, okay? That we must defy the disciplines of individual occupations at a municipal level. You must work together to recognize the convergences of the problems that you are addressing, because they are not unlinked, they are interconnected and multidimensional. When you increase the diversity for considerations of the problems that you are looking at, including more people to the consideration of the problems you are looking at, you are likely to produce solutions that are more lasting, that are more impacting on others. Otherwise, what slows down is in implementation, because you ignore the perspective of others who are crucial to implementation. So this is what would make a huge difference if you are to take a systemic perspective of things. At the most basic level, if I must also say this, that I use an example of yourselves as individuals, firstly. This is another area of levels of system. It's a concept that speaks to, if I decide to change in the environment in which I'm operating, the likelihood is that I will affect that environment for good, okay? If I don't change, I will also affect it positively or negatively. So we are pointing out to you, for example, that if you take responsibility to transform and to think through about how things must be done, and you begin to act in those ways, you are likely to have a positive impact. Other changes might come as a result of an impact at a global level. Let's take this as a global level in the legislatures. This is the national level where we are operating, talking about things together. As a result of this, you may go back to do things as teams, as individuals, or as twosomes who you normally operate together. Those are levels of systems, and in your making decision, you choose which one is the best to intervene in an organization, in the work that you are doing. That's an approach that looks at levels of systems to be able to impact on your work. This is, some of you, if we are to look at some of the work you are doing, I'm sure we can find good examples of systems thinking. Of course, it is complex. It has implications for the kind of, as Dr. Dostal says, of the kind of structures you put into place, the designs of how you work that will make it easier for it to become the way you practice it on a regular basis. We have found that when we recognize that what we have decided upon is only tentative, in other words, it's not conclusive, that it will improve with additional input later. We are thinking in systems. We are recognizing that ours is not the absolute answer. This is an emergent solution up to and until we get experience, research tells us otherwise, or new developments impacts on the work we are doing, and the solution will change accordingly. Things are always changing, always in flux, and therefore you can't absolutely conclude that things are complete. Your answer is the complete answer. Good systems thinking acknowledges and recognizes the solutions as emergent, always emergent, because things are always changing. My final comment is that it's a repeat of sorts and so on. Please, man, in the legislative sector, just stop a little bit more often to reflect about how the work you are about to do impacts on others. Please do that. You can't imagine the impact it will have on the environment inside your organization, inside your unit. If nothing else, if you just reflect, this decision I'm taking, by the way, this decision to come to Durban, did you really think about the impact it has back home? Program Director, thank you very much. I think this is it's a provocative, it's a very useful thing that is going to get us thinking for a long time, but I think it's a good foundation to begin to look at how best to get ourselves organized and think through things in ways that are, and I like the expression she used, that every institution, I should have said, you should have added, and every individual are up for redesigning and rethinking. Mentally, I mean. Thank you very much.